before the era of true crime podcasts, before the saturation of murder documentaries, there was one spectacle that taught an entire nation what it actually looks like when a predator hides behind a $1 million megawatt smile. This is the Forensic Dossier. Today, we are not just rehashing a courtroom circus. We are conducting a full behavioral autopsy on the man behind the American myth, the gridiron legend, the Hollywood darling, the acquitted, Orenthal James Simpson. If you are new here, fix your posture and stick around, because we don't do surface-level gossip. We do documented forensics. We dissect the architecture of deception. If you've been in the dossier before, you already know the drill. Hit that subscribe button right now, because today's file is heavy and the psychology is chilling. Let's open the file. Born July 9th, 1947 in San Francisco, California. O.J. Simpson did not inherit privilege. He was raised in the Potrero Hill housing projects. It was an environment that typically produces stark statistics, not global superstars. As a toddler, he developed rickets. The bone disease left his legs severely bowed, forcing him into corrective metal braces bolted to an iron bar. By 13, he was running with a street gang called the Persian Warriors, culminating in a brief stint at a youth detention facility. For most, that trajectory is a closed loop. But Simpson found a loophole. He found football. And when he ran with that ball, the country happily developed amnesia regarding his flaws. A Heisman Trophy, a two-time All-American at USC, 11 seasons in the NFL, breaking records that seemed mathematically impossible. He wasn't just an athlete. He was an electric current. They called him the Juice. When the cleats came off, the charisma took over. The Naked Gun franchise, those iconic Hertz rental car commercials. He was the blueprint for the modern corporate endorsement. America didn't just love him. They required him to be perfect. But here is the foundational rule of a manufactured persona. The halo effect only lasts as long as the front door stays locked. In 1978, a 30-year-old Simpson met an 18-year-old waitress in Beverly Hills. They married in 1985. They had 2 children, and over the course of their relationship, prosecutors would ultimately compile a dossier detailing 62 separate incidents of abusive behavior directed at her. Let that metric sink into your cognitive framework. 62 documented events, not rumors, paper trails. On New Year's Day in 1989, she dialed 911. Responding officers found her hiding in the landscaping of their Rockingham estate. Her lip was split. Her face was battered. Simpson simply got in his Bentley and drove away. He eventually pled no contest to misdemeanor spousal abuse. His punishment: probation, community service, and a mandate to receive psychological counseling, which the court permitted him to complete over the phone. A literal dial-in apology. She filed for divorce in 1992, but the entanglement didn't end. Reconciliations and separations spun in a dizzying loop. I want you to look at this not as a chaotic romance, but as behavioral architecture. Clinicians classify this as coercive control. It is a systematic methodology of subjugation relying on isolation, financial leverage, physical intimidation, and intermittent reinforcement. The abuser utilizes affection as a weapon just as effectively as his fists. It operates like a cult of 2. She wasn't naive. She documented the escalating threat level. She kept records in a safe deposit box. She told confidants, "He's going to kill me, and he's going to get away with it." She diagnosed her own fate perfectly before June 12, 1994. The public just preferred the Hertz commercials to the truth. June 12, 1994, began with the banality of suburban life. A children's dance recital. Simpson sat in the audience, outwardly functional. That evening, she dined with her family at a restaurant in Brentwood. Her mother accidentally left her glasses behind. A 25-year-old waiter named Ron Goldman volunteered to drop them off on his way home. A casual favor. A brief intersection of timelines. It would cost him his life. At roughly 10:15 p.m., a neighbor's dog began to howl frantically, the specific, distressed pitch of an animal reacting to an atrocity. Following the sound, neighbors discovered two bodies outside her condominium on South Bundy Drive. The scene was a massacre. Both had been stabbed with catastrophic force. Goldman bore severe defensive wounds. He fought a desperate battle. She had been nearly decapitated. She was 35. The LAPD's evidentiary trail pointed almost immediately to O.J. Simpson. Rare size 12 Bruno Magli shoe prints in the blood, a dark leather glove left at the scene. Its exact match was found at Simpson's Rockingham estate. Blood in his white Ford Bronco, blood on his driveway, blood on a pair of socks in his bedroom. Forensic DNA analysis yielded a match to Simpson at a probability of 1 in 170 million. He was scheduled to surrender at 10 a.m. on June 17th. He didn't. He vanished, leaving a rambling letter that his own legal counsel interpreted as a suicide note. What happened next became surrealist television theater, broadcast live to 95 million viewers. The media dubbed it the trial of the century. For once, the hyperbole was accurate. Over 150 witnesses, 9 grueling months of testimony, a jury that deliberated for less than 4 hours. I want you to pause and process that. A complex forensic double homicide trial resolved in the time it takes to watch a double feature at the cinema. Simpson's dream team, Cochran, Bailey, Shapiro, Dershowitz, and Kardashian, understood a fundamental loophole in human psychology. They didn't need to prove O.J. was innocent. They just needed to put the Los Angeles Police Department on trial. In a city still scarred by the Rodney King beating and the 1992 riots, weaponizing the LAPD's historically documented racism was a tactical masterstroke. Detective Mark Furman took the stand and perjured himself regarding his use of racial slurs. Audio tapes proved it. The well was officially poisoned. Then came the infamous glove demonstration. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. It was the precise moment courtroom theater assassinated empirical science. October 3rd, 1995. Not guilty. The national reaction fractured cleanly along racial lines. Black Americans, viewing the trial through the lens of systemic police corruption, celebrated an exceedingly rare defeat of the LAPD. White Americans, focused strictly on the DNA and domestic abuse history, were utterly paralyzed by the verdict. Two Americas, watching the same broadcast, interpreting it through entirely different historical traumas. But the ambiguity vanished in 1997. A civil jury, using a lower burden of proof, found Simpson unanimously liable for the wrongful deaths. They awarded $33.5 million in damages. He spent the next 3 decades dodging the payout. Now, let's get into the actual anatomy of the monster. Forget the legal gymnastics. How does a cognitive profile like this operate? Clinical experts who have analyzed Simpson's behavioral footprint point to 4 distinct, intersecting pathologies. Let's audit them. Pathology 1, the Exceptionalism Complex. This is a deep structural delusion that the rules of gravity do not apply to you. When exceptional physical talent is identified early in a child, and they are systematically shielded from accountability, their brain maps the world as an arena built solely for their amusement. Simpson was insulated from the word no for 4 decades. The consequence center of his brain simply atrophied. Pathology 2, Proprietary Attachment. Do not confuse this with jealousy. Jealousy is the fear of losing love. What Simpson exhibited was ownership, a belief that his partner was an acquired asset. When an asset attempts to declare independence, the predator doesn't process it as heartbreak. They process it as theft. It is a catastrophic narcissistic injury that triggers instrumental violence to regain control. Pathology 3, the halo camouflage. This is the capacity to mimic empathy and project immense warmth to the public. while operating on an entirely ruthless internal code. Prosecution consultant Dr. Donald Dutton likened Simpson to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a classic presentation of bifurcated identity. The man playing golf with executives and the man terrorizing his wife in the dark shared the same biology, but entirely different operating systems. Pathology 4: Invulnerability Bias. After the acquittal, he wrote a book titled If I Did It. He resumed public life. And then, in 2007, he walked into a Las Vegas hotel room with armed associates to retrieve sports memorabilia he claimed was his. He was convicted of armed robbery and sentenced to 33 years. Why? Because invulnerability bias convinces the subject they will always outsmart the trap. A catastrophic miscalculation born of unchecked hubris. He served 9 years. Released in 2017, he died of prostate cancer on April 10, 2024, at the age of 76. He never meaningfully honored the civil judgment. Ron Goldman's father spent 30 years relentlessly pursuing that debt, not for the cash, but to force the legal system to hold a mirror up to the truth. The victims were 35 and 25 years old. He lived to see 76. Half the world believes he got away with murder. The behavioral evidence suggests the world is absolutely right. They say history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. O.J. Simpson remains a masterclass in what happens when a society mistakes physical talent for moral character. When we allow the sports jersey to become an alibi, when the mythology we desperately want to believe becomes more important than the nightmare someone is actually living. The psychology wasn't an unsolvable puzzle. It never is. He believed the world was his personal soundstage. He believed the people in his life were highly expendable props, and for decades, we handed him the script and applauded exactly on cue. The legal system declared him not guilty. The civil system declared him liable. But she declared who he was years before the cameras ever turned on. She documented it. She locked it in a safe. We just liked his smile too much to read the warnings. That is the actual trial of the century. The one we all failed. If you made it to the end of this file, hit the subscribe button. Because next week in the dossier, we are opening a profile that will make you rethink every hero this country puts on a pedestal. Same formula, different monster. I'll see you in the dossier.